today, our main star of the show is going to be producer Chris.
Boom. Nothing like being in a role that puts you away and from the attention to then have the attention brought right to you.
This episode will be like our best one, and he's going to leave us for a tech show.
Say I'm leaving at the very end.
And this is my last episode. Bye, guys.
Welcome to Tabletop Talk. Today we're going to go over a few redactions that we had from a few past episodes. We had a moment to actually sit and listen to some of the things we were talking about, and we realized a few of us in general, myself included, put out some wrong information. So we're going to kind of go over today a little bit about the makings of our podcast and what's kind of been going on behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll be able to answer questions for anyone else who's thinking about trying to get into this same deal that we're working on. So I would like to first apologize. In the last episode, I said that X-Wing was a game created with Hasbro. That was a mistake. It actually is also Atomic Mass Games, who are the same people who made Marvel Crisis Protocol. So that was a huge oopsie on my part. From there, though, I know there was also a few things that we had mentioned that maybe were not Sword Coast and typical Wizards of the Coast lore that we have known of. Again, we're kind of human, so we make mistakes from time to time, too. And this is just us dropping the curtain for a moment to talk with you guys and fill you in on what's going on. So with me are Rick and Jeremy, and how are you guys feeling?
Good.
Yeah, feeling pretty good. I mean, this is the time of the year where allergies kick in again after the springtime, and I tend to get my once a year sick in the fall, so I'm hoping to avoid that. Or I get it now, and I don't get it towards my birthday, Thanksgiving, but we'll see. Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Hanging in there.
I was going to say, for your sake, I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I know it sucks getting it around the holidays.
Yeah.
We also will have a bunch of questions for our producer, Chris, today.
Yeah, you do.
Because he knows a lot more on the technical stuff, and all for those starting. But Jeremy, I think you had a list of some of the stuff we were going to quickly kind of just redact and go over.
Yeah, just a few corrections from a couple weeks ago on the ADHD pod. I mean, that's what you get when you leave it to the main character syndrome and the novice DM.
you give us the room, and you say, "Go for it, guys." And a couple episodes later, you're going to have some. Let me pull back a little bit there and fix that.
Yeah, there was no grounding by our forever DM or Dr. RPG. So with Sawi, here are some of our corrections. We were saying that Aasimar, Orcs, and Goliath were now playable in the Player's Handbook, the 2024. However, they have been playable in different source books since the 3.5 edition. I was coming from more of a Player's Handbook perspective as someone who has not purchased any of these supplements.
Yeah, and I think that was the error on our part, is we were going core source book, Player's Handbook to Player's Handbook, and not really adding in any of the dozens of expansions and source books that are out there to also play. But we were just jumping from there to there. But I don't think either of us ever said from the 2014 Player's Handbook to the 2024 Handbook.
Correct. Or even possibly new. I mentioned a couple of the source books, but my knowledge of those other source books is very limited. It takes someone with great purchasing ability to have that knowledge.
Or someone, it's just not great purchasable ability. It's self-sacrificing myself. I'm definitely like that guy sitting by the, hey, is that a sharp object? Oh, whoops, I walked into it. Sorry. No.
Next up, we were saying that Aasimar might have been something that they added in because more people wanted to play it. That is a very speculative thing because Aasimar is not ranked high in D&D Beyond characters created. Based off the 2023 unrolled released user data by D&D Beyond, less than 100,000 of characters created played either Gnome, Goliath, Aasimar, Aarakocra, Lineage, and Custom. And each of those was around 100K. Not it's all those together, but a little over 100K played half orc, around 250,000 played half elf, and over 700,000 were human. So human over 700,000, elf I think it was around 400,000 or 500,000, and then down right below 100,000 was Aasimar and Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
And the custom area in there is orc.
Probably a lot of our viewers play human, but did not think that was the highest played.
I was
option.
definitely surprised to hear that.
I was too.
Being that every character I think I've ever played has been not human.
I was gonna say, I haven't seen you play human yet.
No.
Jeremy, you and me have played on and off for many years, and you did play human once.
Once.
And all.
That's all. Next correction. Elves and tieflings already had extra racial spells in the older player's handbook. I just need to play more elves and tieflings.
Yeah, I haven't played an elf either, so.
Next up, it's not quite a correction, but on the notes of Drow, there are magic items that, like sunglasses or Riddick-style goggles, that can help with sunlight sensitivity. So even if you are playing a Drow with sunlight sensitivity, you don't have to banish them below deck like Ricker I thought.
Yeah.
Or shroud them and clothe them.
If you are players and doing this to another player, it could be a little funny. Just make sure the other guy's okay with it.
Yeah.
And last correction of the day, I was mentioning that Dragonborns were kind of some kind of half species, and that is incorrect. Instead, based off of the lore, Dragonborn were created by the dragon gods and powerful dragons who created them with humanoid and dragon power. Humanoid characteristics with dragon power. That's something I want.
Yeah, that makes it sound even cooler, actually.
I was gonna say it is once you really get into the lore there.
And that's it. Wisawi.
Yep. It happens.
Yep.
Oopsies.
Well, I mean, we're only human, and so
Yeah, like the 750,000 to 1 million characters that are made. We are human.
I just a baby.
So again, we apologize, and maybe this wasn't something that threw your day off, but it was just something we thought we should quickly go back and cover. That there's a lot of things that we also bring up from our own speculative stuff that's not necessarily how the channel itself is. Now, I think we all agree Tolkien's amazing, and that is agreed upon by the channel.
Yes.
So that won't drop.
Nope, that will not. So you will still get my tangents.
Yes, you will.
For the one person probably out there other than myself who lives for those moments and is just sitting there waiting every Monday afternoon and like, I can't wait to hear how they're going to do it. Just like I sit and wait. I can't wait to see how I'm going to do it. Like that person and I, we are clicked and it's going to continue to click. Don't worry.
Yeah, those
They'll
actually
continue.
are not the tangents in Rick's life. Everything else is a tangent.
Yeah, that's true. It's all perspective. Everything is relative. I hear that from scientists. I'm pretty sure it's Einstein who said everything's relative. I mean, specifically time, but everything is relative.
Specifically time.
Yeah, everything is relative.
I'm pretty sure he was referencing Tolkien as well.
I'm pretty sure he was too, even though he was. I know he was alive.
Yeah,
And-
same time
and-
period.
He
same
would have
time period.
read it, which is nuts. So tangent, as we're talking about tangents,
Oh no.
in the Oppenheimer movie that came out,
Yeah.
it is wild that Einstein was alive during World War II. Like, it's one of those like things in your head. You're like, oh, he lived so long ago. Nah, he lived in the late 1800s to the mid 1900s.
Yep.
Just like Pablo Picasso died in 1971.
That one always gets me.
Yeah.
The crazy part is he died about 4 months after Aerosmith's first album came out.
That is true,
So there is
actually.
a possible chance that Pablo Picasso listened to Aerosmith before he died. And that makes my
That's
head
wild.
explode.
Honestly, time moves so fast, and you don't think about it until you actually measure those years.
Yeah. Now, that might be, I remember that stat specifically, but it might not be Aerosmith. It might be Rolling Stones or one of those like classic rock bands. So
I think
we
it
will
was,
come back to
I
this
think
in
it
a
was
couple
Rolling
weeks.
Stones.
Yeah.
We'll look into this.
Yeah, we'll look into it, and I will provide another
better
tangent in a
yet,
couple weeks
the best
on a correction.
people who can catch us is you guys. You guys can always, if you have the opportunity on whichever platform you're listening to, like, comment, give us a rating and all. I know not everything has a comment on there, but if you're able to find us, you can even go on to X, or a couple places. Producer Chris, you want to list those off for us?
Yes. So on X, find us at TT Talk Pod. On TikTok at TabletopTV LLC. And sorry, I was like, what?
Sorry, I just distracted producer Chris because there's a spider descending not above him, but actually in between him and I, and it was very distracting.
Oh.
I know this is not the ADHD podcast, but that does not mean that there will be no ADHD.
Yeah, unfortunately, you get that with us as a default. So.
I was like, what's
Feet
happening?
are no longer on the ground, so this is fine.
I know, I just raised mine up.
Make sure to rate and follow.
We're all in our 30s and just like, nope.
Burning this house down. It's not even mine.
And
If Jeremy
on
got
Reddit,
quieter on the audio, we apologize. He's leaned very far away from his mic.
and find us on Reddit at r/tabletoptv. All links down below.
Awesome. Well, thank you, producer Chris.
You're welcome.
Now, you guys hear us talk a lot.
Too much.
I mean, a lot. And especially the three of us who are here. We are all non-stop goers. Speaking of, we do have a little bit of upsetting news today.
that makes it sound like really, really bad. We have an update on personnel, I would say.
Okay, that's fair. Dr. RPG is going on hiatus. So, nothing is wrong there.
He's still alive.
He's still alive. Everything is going good. But they're getting a lot closer to the due date. And so he's sticking around at home and helping out his family and such, being a good husband. And we'll be sending our thoughts and prayers that way and hoping that, we'll hear again from him soon here. So he will let us know when he's able to join us again.
Rightfully so, he's taking a little bit of a break because priorities matter, and he's choosing the right priorities.
He is.
Time and energy needs to be there, not here.
Yeah.
And our wives keep asking us, why do we keep choosing this?
Who?
All right, so yes, we talk a lot about our opinions and other things on here, and we're trying to continue to grow our channel. We're going to be moving on to YouTube very soon here. We've already started recording a lot of games and such. It's just going to take some time, and I'm going to be moving a little more towards a producer position to help producer Chris out with some of the video editing. So there may be a few times I have to drop out here and there, but we're hoping, to keep things going, and we're just filling you guys in. So now let's get to the point of today. Talking about building a channel of our own. And producer Chris is the bravest of us all. He got it.
Yep.
He got the spider, everyone.
It fell right in front of my white notes.
If you
here.
don't add like a cheering sound here, there's going to be problems.
He was just like
cheering
Samwise
sound.
Gamgee.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was going to say for the like and subscribe stuff, like if in these comments you put anything in the comments for a Rick thing and just any topic or subject, I guarantee you I will tangent myself to that in a Tolkien-related way.
Of course you will.
Yep. So I encourage you to comment
I think
with
it's
anything.
it's what we pay you in fake money.
I was going to say pay me in the negative dollars.
I like
He
that.
pays us.
I think people should comment and go. You have to leave a 5-star review to comment,
Yeah.
obviously.
That's the way
But
it
you
works.
leave a 5-star review and you say, "I would like main character syndrome, aka Rick,
Yep.
to relate One Piece to Lord of the Rings." Don't do it right now.
Oh,
but that's
already
what
done.
you would
Easy.
do.
I was gonna say this was dangerous, man.
Already
Dangerous.
done. Already done.
And he will not do that until that comment is live.
Yes.
So sorry. So if you want to hear that One Piece and Lord of the Rings tangent, you have to follow, like, subscribe, and comment for that with a 5-star review.
In
And I
fact,
promise
it
every
wouldn't-
single
it
one I
wouldn't
will
hurt.
do.
It
I
wouldn't
will
hurt
do.
if you guys left a few paragraphs on the Reddit page and stories that you want us to cover.
Yep.
Rick will find a way.
I will do every single one of them,
way
I
or
promise.
It could be Tolkien Thursdays.
Yep. Tolkien's every day.
I mean, it is every day for
Yeah.
all of us, but... All right, so, let's get to the point here. We are going to go over creating a channel. So we actually went out of our way and wrote some questions for you, producer Chris.
Yay! And I have answers.
Oh boy, we hope you do, because we don't.
That's why they're questions.
Jeremy, did you want to ask
Sure.
the first question?
All right, hit me.
Yeah, producer Chris, you're wearing your headset right now, so I want to know, what's your main focus when listening on the headset during recordings?
My main focus is, we actually just within the last couple minutes had a perfect example. Making sure things are running fine, but then when I get a weird noise in the headset, that means something's coming disconnected. So, because I touched something. Also, don't touch anything.
That feels like a better job than I thought it was.
Yeah.
I just don't touch any. Never mind. I
Just
can't
hit
do that.
record and leave it. But the main thing, though, is sound quality, making sure everyone's still coming through clean. The input signals are low enough to where it's just the voice in front of the microphone rather than everyone else being picked up on that same mic. Just sound bounces off the walls. And that's another thing, is making sure your room is treated, soundproofed. We got some going on right now. We have more to do, but it's helping. So that's what I'm doing under the headset.
I like that.
What would you say is the most... you can arrange this adjective however you want, but like most valuable or like useful or most used, what the piece of equipment that you find most useful and valuable as a producer?
As a producer, definitely the computer. And making sure that computer is powerful enough, because there's so much going on, especially if you're using only one thing for recording video and audio at the same time. You're kind of going to need something that can handle all of that. Plus also having enough headroom to where if your computer has to work a little bit harder, it's got that space.
So this isn't my actual question, but do you happen to, off the top of your head, know what that power range is, just for any of our other computer fans out there? You don't have to get like too detailed. I'm sure people can find
I actually do.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's over 9,000.
I'm so mad you beat me to that.
I mean, I did also used to sell computers for a living, and like Chris, I know you use a MacBook Pro. I would definitely say, if you are wanting, I'm sorry to
Go ahead.
take over your answer here, but like I literally made a living by recommending the right equipment to people. You wouldn't want anything below a like pro level computer. So if that's in the Apple game, which creatively speaking, you're probably wanting to gear that way anyways. A newer MacBook Pro with at the very least an M1 chip in it would be your basement level. The more current eras with an M2 or an M3 are probably where you're wanting to go. Like as Chris said, if you're doing everything on one machine, you're also going to want to get into a bigger screen so that you can do more in one screen, because you're probably going to have your sound mixer on there. Unless you have a soundboard, you're going to have multiple inputs as well as whatever program you're recording on too. So
Is that why my Linux doesn't work at all?
yeah. So the downside to that is you're looking at probably like minimum like a $2,500 to $3,000 laptop, really to give you what you want, with, as Chris said, some headroom. So where if you do need to like go into a turbo boost, it can do that.
Right.
Now, keeping in mind, you guys, that also is if you're trying to run everything.
Yes.
Right.
So you can do it with lower quality things,
Yeah.
but you're going to want to space that out and maybe focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
like
Yes.
that.
And if you have a gaming PC, that's going to be more than enough.
Yeah.
For sure. And
I
a
only know
lot
that
of people
'cause you
have that
fixed
now.
mine.
Exactly.
So-
Yeah. Just last week I
Correction,
did that.
You've built mine.
I
I
pretty
think
much built
almost
yours, yeah.
everything is new in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So going to my real question then is, oh shoot, I was looking at Jeremy's questions. I was like, that's not mine.
Wait, this wasn't the
All
test.
my notes are shared on the same thing. What programs do you use when you're like recording and editing for both video and audio?
All right. So since we're doing a podcast right now, I'll start with the audio side. I initially started, because I have a MacBook Pro, I have GarageBand and Logic Pro on there. Both very good programs. I started with GarageBand though. because I was a little more familiar with that than Logic, although I have played with Logic doing my music on the side. But I just found personally, like, it's going to be all personal preference. I just found Logic to be a lot easier to use, because I can record on it and then I can turn around and edit it right then and there. And the way I've been editing, it's like I did today's release in like a half hour, maybe 45 minutes, because It was just boom, boom, done, plus it helps, with the templates that I've made for it too. So, and there's also like free software out there. You don't need to like go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a program, or even softwares that require subscriptions. I'm looking at you, Adobe. And where you're spending just hundreds, if not thousands of dollars over time. And that's just not necessary. You can, like, if you want to do a podcast, there's Audacity, there's OBS. That is also, you can use that for videos as well. Reaper, or really any free version out there, as long as, or you can even use your phone. Like, we have a supercomputer in our pockets these days. So all you really have to do is hook up. You could technically use the microphone that's on your phone, but I recommend getting something external that is compatible with it, and using the voice recorder app. The resources are there, and it's so you have options.
Yeah, you can even use Zoom. Yeah. Because Zoom, you might have so the podcast I did before this, my buddy and I, we did not live near each other, but we would record weekly. And we would record on Zoom so we could interact with each other. But Zoom, when you save your files, it saves the video and an audio file. And then he would just turn around and start editing that audio file. Nice. And it was perfect. Yeah. And then if we ever got anywhere to where we could or wanted to release a video of our podcast, we could, because it's already there. But we just always use the audio.
Right. And sorry, this is a late addition to the show, but the studio pug, Odin, has joined us. Yeah. So, helping you out there, producer Chris. Nice. He's let me know personally that we should always mention Odin. One, apparently his kids love when we mention Odin. And two, it leaves a little less to get rid of in the background.
Yeah, just some random pug barking.
And anyone who has a pug knows pugs are gonna pug.
Yeah. So to continue, so on the video side, I personally use DaVinci Resolve to edit.
You just put that on my computer.
I did just recently put that on my computer. Yeah. So what I like about DaVinci Resolve is, like, if anyone's going to ask me what program to use, it's that one, because the free version offers so many options when it comes to editing that a lot of other free versions of other programs simply do not, where everything's behind a paywall.
And it's pretty easy to use. For my unified soccer coaching last year, I made a highlight reel of their district tournament to invite people to come to see their big game against our high school rival. And it was very, very simple to learn.
Yeah. On the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, DaVinci Resolve Studio, what I like about that is that if I did want to get that, it's only a one-time payment. I don't have to subscribe and continue to pay. It's about $300, but it's one time.
Oh, that's the exact same cost I paid for FL Studios, which is my mix.
FL Studio also is, yeah. So
that one does not have a free version though. So I apologize, and that's why we will not recommend it on this channel.
But yeah, those are my programs of choice for recording and editing.
Now, producer Chris, what statistics do you like to use and reference?
I like to use... So when a new episode gets released, for example, I look at how well it does in the first 24 hours, because it... excuse me, voice crack. In the first 24 hours, that shows me how much of a reach it has, right off the bat. And usually for us, it's around as of right now, it's around like 16 to 18,000 million.
Oh, great.
Wow, we're doing better than I thought.
So the 16 to 18 is in the first 24 hours, and usually that will tell us about how many, because the podcasting hosting website doesn't really tell us exactly how many followers we have throughout all the platforms, but it kind of gives you a rough estimate of, okay, in the first 24 hours, if this many plays are there, that's about how much you got. But in the 72 hours, that really gives me an idea of really how many people are listening to it. Because then by the time we get to like Thursday or Friday, it kind of just falls off. So that's really something I look at. And usually when that happens, it's like, okay, might want to up the push of, you know, getting us out there and marketing, basically. So, yeah.
Nice.
What would you say is one of the biggest or most common like faux pas that us as like the speaking talents or speaking roles of the podcast commit most often?
Let's see. I mean, there's so many in like before we actually start the episode. Rick likes to mess with me and do random sound effects and just
I try to do those before we like officially start.
Yeah.
But I also like to do them while I know we're rolling, so they're just there, just in case we need them for something.
Yeah, I really don't have one, honestly. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's
nothing
good.
really comes
it means
to
that
mind.
We're not like really making your life like a living hell, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's definitely good. I always wonder like how much of it does he cut, you know? Like, that we aren't aware of because we're just so focused on hearing ourselves. And
yeah, like you guys do such a great job at what you say in your conversations and how everything works. I don't remember the last time I really had to cut anything in like the episode itself. I try to leave a lot of the same, just a lot of the footage we get, and just leave it as is. But if it's really like an issue or something, which I don't remember the last time I had to do that, but yeah, I'll cut it out. But
Odin actually has just informed us that he took a lie detector test on that for you, and that was a lie. He says he's been cut out of a few episodes. Apparently he was too vulgar, if I remember right, was the note. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we only do so good because you make us sound so good. So going into that, what was it that drew you to want to even learn producing stuff? I know you and me have for a few years before even this tried teaming up on a few things, but you've always had kind of an interest in the editing part. So I was just curious, what was your motivation? What got you into wanting to do that sort of deal?
For that, I will have to go about 22 years into the past. It was late elementary school. I was such a nerd for like behind the scenes stuff on DVDs, and so like that sparked a huge interest in like just how how things are shot, camera positions, cameras themselves, lenses, microphones, what type of microphones, when you use them, in what situations, just everything. And it just over time, I just kept finding myself like going on YouTube once YouTube became a thing and people were posting, I've watched DaVinci Resolve tutorials, like, is there something I'm missing, or being able to, because I like technology. I'm a huge nerd in that as well. And I also like to be creative. It may not necessarily be, on the mic or in front of the camera. Although I know I can be, I just don't choose to. But I don't want to stretch myself out too thin. But I feel like being behind the board and showing that I can make this sound good, regardless of like the equipment we have, because I know we started off, we had what we had,
Yeah.
And I know I look back on the first 4 episodes or so of this podcast, and even to this day, I'm kicking myself because I know it could be so much better. If anyone has listened to those, obviously the sound quality wasn't its greatest, but again, I was out of the game for a while, so I was rusty, and I was just trying to. Once I got into the rhythm of it all, a lot of it started coming back.
And I
Plus,
think
some
that's
of that
probably
was-
the case with all projects, right?
And some of that was just environmental. We have a different space now than we did.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that's,
Yeah.
that even, perfectionist mindset aside, you probably have to be like, well, that just wasn't you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, completely out of your control. And then I like what you said, how it's, you've gotten back into the game too. I'm always shocked at how well we sound on this.
Yeah.
I am too. It's the only time I like my voice.
I
And then I
appreciate
realize
that.
I'm listening to Jeremy and not me.
So yeah, I really like knowing how things work, not just from what we see on the outside, but like even internally, like why is a dynamic mic, and why does voice isolation do what it does, and just whatever, because in this mic that I'm talking into right now, it's got voice isolation technology, so it's not really picking up you guys, but it's definitely picking up me.
Gotcha.
So it's I thought it'd be really cool to
Nice.
get into it, and plus it allows me to be creative too, because there's so many different effects and transitions and all that I can just play around with and see what works and what I like and go from
I
there.
have to say, you have a bunch of effects. I'm quite shocked we haven't heard a "pwah, pwah, pwah, pwah," like every episode.
Yeah, I mean, on DaVinci particularly, it has a fair amount, but a lot of the ones that I want, I have to go like online and try to find like a royalty-free version, because I don't want to subscribe to something quite yet, but that has a huge library of stuff. But yeah, and a lot of them that are free, they are free if you give credit also in the descriptions and stuff. So, and workload wise, it's kind of like, just don't really need to worry about that. I'll try to find something, or I'll even do like back to the behind the scenes stuff on the DVDs. Like there's sound design too. Like I can create something myself with stuff around the house or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and you and me have teamed up a couple times because I did a lot of stagecraft, so I had to learn a few like cool things. Like I learned how to make a wind machine and stuff like that. But all I know is we definitely couldn't do this without the awesome work you put into there. And in general, all 3 of you guys are awesome because you're working full-time gigs and able to make it once to twice a week to meet up and work on this stuff, which I really appreciate you guys joining me for. So,
Of course.
You're welcome.
Yes.
and then so did you have any questions for us, I guess?
Did I have any questions for you guys? I think I do. I just got to pull them up because I don't actually have them on me. Okay, so question number 1. How do you balance creative freedom with the expectations of your audience, and how do you measure whether an episode is successful?
That's a really, really tough question, and I like it a lot.
I do too. I just didn't
I
go
think
first.
this is a perfect
Yeah.
opportunity for you to cut some of the dead silence as we all think about it, so it sounds like we respond right away.
No. I like the pause. You know, for the listeners at home to just go, yeah, how is that? And then we chime in. I would say, as far as judging a episode as successful or not, there's a couple different ways that I personally do. At the end of an episode, I generally have a feeling of how it went for us and how our flow was. So as far as, did we interrupt each other a lot? Did one of us drone on too long? Were we all kind of on the same page? You kind of get into a rhythm. And so for me, whenever we're in that rhythm, I feel successful. And then when I listen to the episode, once you actually, publish it, I listen to that again. And usually that first instinct of, hey, how was that? I felt like we were in a really good rhythm is correct. And so that's usually how I judge it. If we had more reviews out there, we'd find more things successful. So remember, rate and review and follow.
Yeah. And I think we can only see them if they're 5-star, right, Jeremy?
Yes.
They only exist if they're 5-star.
I would say, honestly, you kind of covered most of it right there. There's not much else I could say. For me, I like to sit and I like to listen again and go back through and make sure we have kind of our facts correct, or that we at least are stating whether it's our own personal opinions or not. And we're human. So there's a lot of times, that I catch myself even saying things, or I'll catch myself interrupting Rick. Like at the end of the last episode, I listened to that after it came out and was kind of beating myself up on it. I thought the episode went pretty good, but there's just little things, and it's hard because I'm kind of I'm the most skeptical probably in our group, so I tend to beat us up harder than I mean to sometimes. Yeah. And a lot of the time I'm beating myself up more than I'm even letting out to the rest of the group. Yeah. Those things.
To speak to the point of how do you, what do we do when we hear feedback from people? It goes back to, and it's why podcasts in general get really almost insistently annoying about hey, subscribe, whatever, review, because that's the only way we hear about it. You either hear through the reviews or word of mouth from our circle of friends that we hear, and a lot of times those word of mouths are just you're on a podcast? That's so great. You're perfect. It's no, we're not. But
we appreciate the love.
To go back to my previous podcasting experience, it was a hockey podcast where all we did was talk about cracking on hockey stuff, and we would sit there, and he and I knew what we were talking about and had quite a bit of experience in it. We knew terminology and some of the acronyms and stuff, and we would just start talking. And I had family come up to me and goes, "You guys, number one, talk really fast." It's okay, that is great feedback, thank you. And they're and I also don't know what this or that is. And then they were even at one point and there's one instance where they said, everybody knows this, so we won't address it. And it's they were we don't know what that is because we're new to hockey. And it's oh, that's a great point. We can't alienate one side or the other because of an assumption we make. So we would use that and be all right, now we have to explain a little bit. So every new thing that we would do would be hey, this. And then you little offshoot of that, this is what this stat or this idea is, or the zone that we're talking about, this is what it is, and then you go into it so that you introduce it to your audience. Whether you think your audience knows it or not, the first time you bring it up, it's probably a good idea to at least explain what it is so that they know, or that there's a base understanding.
Okay. We actually did get some of that also on ours. That's why we made a whole episode
the
on
terminology
terminology. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's super important because you can have podcasts that are designed for more veteran players or veteran whatever the subject is, and you can kind of lean into that, and you don't have to necessarily hold their hand or water stuff down. You still do have to cater to the audience that's going to grow, but you can kind of lean in on one side or the other. And it's just a matter of who we hear from. If we hear more from people who are hey, I want you guys go more in depth on this, great. We probably have a little bit more of a veteran play audience, so we can do that. Or we hear, hey, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. It's really cool, and I really appreciate what you guys are saying, but there's a lot of stuff that I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's great. Then we're going to go through a terminology episode where we talk about what a BBOG is, or the big bad guys and all these things, what a crit and all of these terminology that we would just normally shout out without thinking twice about because we use it all the time. But someone getting into the game for the first time has no idea.
Yeah, and it's stuff that's hard. We get it. We've all been there.
Yeah.
So the more we hear from you guys, the more we're able to, I think, judge how we're doing and what it is you guys appreciate and what you guys need from us.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a whole symbiotic relationship we got going, guys. And
so you hear us say, like, subscribe, like, comment. Part of that is so that we can see that the episodes are being shared.
we want to know that you guys are liking what we're
but also we need to hear what you guys think so that we can make adjustments and make ourselves better.
Yeah, we can mold it into something that is more catered to all of you.
Well, and one of the few comments that we got in there was actually about more Dr. RPG.
And that's why we kicked him out. Bye.
But, that kind of made me realize we have to start maybe tightening up on getting our facts straight, because it seemed like there were a lot of people who really, or at least a few people out there who like that
informational,
we're laying out actual information. And so we're trying to, figure out that good in between of entertainment while giving news and while making a point of whether it's an opinion or something we know about.
I mean, we won't have Dr. RPG for a little bit, but I'm sure one of us could step up and be like graduate assistant RPG.
Interim Dr. RPG.
Yeah.
I mean, a fun fact,
Clinical trial to RPG.
Well, I am in my nutrition's bachelor's, so I do actually have access to a, PubMed and all of the different, medical journals, which I was looking at today.
I've got bartending license, if that counts.
I have a
Actually,
1997 edition of
it's expired now. But
I have a 1997 edition of the Britannica, encyclopedia, so I'm pretty sure that could be super helpful for us too.
That's real great. Real great.
You know what? We can make our own physician place of RPG stuff.
Yep.
We don't need Dr. RPG. That's a joke. We do Dr. RPG. And we are hoping everything's going great with you guys.
If you guys don't mind, I do have an answer to my own question, and I would like to share it.
Producer Chris realized he likes talking.
Yeah. I mean, I know I do. It's just I'm around loud people.
Which ones are those?
Yeah.
Yeah, who?
Who's the... Oh, no, we've already established I'm the third loudest here. So that was a previous episode that I will hold to for the rest of my life, that I'm not the loudest. So
did you make that your ringtone for a while?
Yeah. I remember being told I was third loudest. And I don't know if that was Kyle specifically telling me.
It was me.
Yeah, someone told me that I was
Jeremy
third
shot a glare.
Is that why you have number 3 tattooed on your neck now?
And it's just going to be, and it's a 3 yelling across my face.
I do think that looks infected, though. You might need to get that checked out, buddy.
Anyway, Chris, you have an answer.
So balancing creative freedom and the expectations of the audience. So on the editing side, I think it's important to note that you don't want to edit too little to where it's not really a visually engaging or auditorily. Right? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Audibly engaging.
Audibly engaging. There it is. So
tingling sensations.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that the wrong? I might be on the wrong channel, guys.
So you want to make sure, and there's also editing too much. It's too much of an editor's episode rather than who's on screen or on the mics or whatever. So it's a blessing and a curse. But you just got to find that area in the middle to where it's not going to be too much for the listener, because you got to think the listener or the viewer, whatever medium you're doing, they're the ones that have to watch this, not you. So you want to make sure it's engaging, but not too much. There's not a whole lot going on to where it's they don't know what the heck's going on.
I would feel like the over editing becomes a much bigger issue on anything video related, because you can see every single cut.
Yeah.
Every time when it comes to video, and too many of those, and because you'll see videos YouTube videos of people making statements, and even the statements themselves are cut, and you can tell that they tried it several times, and then they're just piecing each sentence the best way, and it's that just, it looks super weird when you're talking in a sentence, but as the sentence is flowing, you can see the cuts in it. It's it gives a very disingenuous vibe to me when I see stuff like that. So I can see that over editing being a problem, really being something to as a producer, really kind of be paranoid about.
Well, and
when it
I
comes to
took
video.
a lot of video production classes. Like I was hardcore. Like the only thing I would say I almost went to school for was for actual video stuff and teaching, but whole different thing there. Yeah, no, it's hard sometimes when you watch. And I think the worst part is taking some of those courses, and similar to like with you guys in IT and such, that moment of seeing something that's just like, that ain't right.
Yep.
And it's so noticeable. You can't help but notice it.
Yeah. And you can't look away. You can't like, there's just no, that's it. That's the only thing that exists in that moment.
Alrighty. So question numero dos. I think Rick kind of touched on this already, but what role does feedback from your listeners play in shaping your content, and how do you integrate it into your planning process for an episode?
It kind of stokes the ego one way or another. In general, when we get feedback, it definitely hypes us up a little more, good or bad. Obviously, good feedback makes us happy. But the fact that if we're getting feedback from any outside source that's not ourselves, that means somebody cared enough to at least put something. And we've not received anything really negative yet.
No.
I would say it feels nice that when we hear stuff from you guys, we know people are listening. And that encourages us to want to keep trying and do it, because it can be hard sometimes doing this stuff if you're not getting a response. I mean, Jeremy, you've been on stage. It's awkward doing like a play or something and there's no response at either a laugh gag or like something like there's just nobody there, and if nothing happens, and that's usually during rehearsals. But
yeah, I've been on stage. I've never experienced that before, though.
Yeah, okay. I forgot you skipped every rehearsal.
This is also someone who only did one musical to Kyle's like 4 plus 4 plays plus the
I was gonna say,
20
way
20
more
L's.
than that.
I was like, I did a play and a musical.
Once we get the videos going out, you guys can find my little buzzies hidden around the set.
Yeah, and also don't get discouraged if you're not getting that success. It's not going to happen overnight, let alone in a week or a month or even a year. It takes some people a few years to get going, but
hell yeah on that reference.
Yeah.
I don't think if you didn't do it on purpose, it makes it even better, but
I didn't.
I saw you perk up. I don't know if you caught it, but that was most definitely a Friends reference.
That's so funny, because I just know all I was thinking about was the show Crashing with Pete Holmes, where he's talking about doing his internship as a comedian, where you basically, like, there's so many comedians I hear talking about how they have to bomb before. Yeah. And there's very few people who they talk about a comedian who had instant success, where it's like, well, this comedian, I hated them because they were 17 years old and they stepped on stage and they were hilarious and I hated it. I never saw them bomb, right? So most of you will bomb, and that's okay because it's part of growth.
Yeah, and you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, don't just stop because things are not moving. It only fails if you stop moving. So,
in going more even to like the point of like feedback is how we can determine if something is a bit and it's fun versus if it's completely distracting to the audience,
or
like
obnoxious.
Now,
I mean,
when people at the table tell me a bit's gone too far, like, sure, I'll scale it back a little bit. But if like a review says, hey, that whole piece was really distracting and I would not like to see it ever again, that bit goes away. But until then, the bits that make your unique nuance and like vibe of a show and a podcast, those are what make you unique. Like everybody has a podcast on something, and it's everybody talks about something. So you got to find stuff that makes you, and that's what those bits are. And those bits are fun until you get the feedback that says it's either really good or really bad, and you adjust on that.
And you guys, Rick will do it to every single comment you guys put out there. You can tell, one of you can say, I don't like when you talk about Tolkien. And he'll be like, and then the next person's like, but I like when he talks about Tolkien. And he's just going to go off of whatever the most recent is.
Yeah. And then that one will be how audiences partake different types of franchises. And I will take both sides of an argument on, like, I don't know, how people, Rings of Power or something, or people don't like it's more tangents. I started listening to a audiobook of the trilogy.
Oh my gosh!
And it is
what's Legolas again?
Oh no! Well, yeah. So it's from before the movies.
I'm scared.
It was recorded in like
Jeremy's
the
crying
early
in his
'90s,
hands.
and so nothing is impacted by the Peter Jackson movies.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time they introduced Legolas at the Council of Elrond, they were like, and from Mirkwood, representing the elves, is Legolas. And I
nailed it.
I was like, oh, what? And then they talked about Saruman, and they're like, Saruman. Or
He sounds like a Digimon.
Celeborn in Lothlorien was Celeborn. And it was all of these are like it almost made me stop. I was like, it's almost distracting, but then I realized like that was my hand. Sorry, I just shook the whole table. I get animated.
Burn earthquake.
But it was
firing
before
himself up.
Yeah, it was before my like almost everyone's major influence of how we see these characters. But it was before them. So it's like maybe through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that's how they thought it was. Like, and the example I use is Harry Potter came out when I was in elementary school, and our class read it out loud together, and we called Hermione Hermione because it was a name that none of us had ever seen before. I'm assuming British people have seen the word Hermione before Harry Potter, or she came up with a legendary name off the top of her head. But
So talk about the most popular character with a name that no one knew how to pronounce until the movies came out.
Right, exactly.
Hermione.
Because we were
That was what I thought it was.
Hermione is how we said it through the entire Philosopher's Stone and part of the Chamber of Secrets. And then the movies came out, and we're like, oh, we were so wrong. And
It's like trying to read the names in the Odyssey and just like, oh, could you imagine like listening to an audiobook of the Silmarillion, them trying to pronounce these names that have like 20 to 30 letters in them and are all like one letter off from each other?
Yeah.
The Silmarillion audiobook is what brings me life, though, because I can actually hear someone else pronounce something and go, oh, okay. I was just going to read like Tyrion upon Tuna, but it's Tyrion upon Tuna. I'm like, oh, that sounds way better.
Well, especially when you get somebody like Andy Serkis doing it, who just puts every oomph and ounce of what he has.
He puts every ounce of his being into his roles. Well, you know what? Thank you for answering those questions for us, Chris, and thank you for giving us a few questions, and thank you guys out there for listening to us. We know we didn't really get much into the RPG stuff today, but we just kind of wanted to, fill you guys in what we're working on, what the plans are here. We're trying to build up a little more, and I think as we get closer to fall, some of our schedules will start to slow down that we can pick up on a few bigger projects on here. Mm-hmm. So, thank you guys for listening to us again. And Chris, can you give them where they can hit us up? And if somebody wants to ask you more questions about the tech stuff, where that's the best place to hit you up on.
Of course. So we can have our own private conversation over on X at TT Talk Pod. Also Reddit r/TabletopTV. And I think those are really the only things, though, because right now
keeping in mind, tabletop is with a hyphen, like Spider-Man.
Yes, tabletop -top or table hyphen.
That's why we have the hyphen.
Good.
I think Jeremy originally put it in a text to me and all.
It was probably accidental.
I think it was, and I liked it and all.
Yeah. And like I said, all of those socials are down in the description below.
Awesome. Well, everyone, have a good rest of the evening out there. We love you. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next week on Tabletop Talk.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. This is producer Chris, and there's a couple more things I forgot to mention in this episode that is vital to starting a podcast. Number one is a podcast hosting site. That is a site where you can upload your audio file, whatever your episode's going to be, what people are going to hear, and create a title, create a description, everything. And a hosting site allows you to distribute to all of the available podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, everything. Almost everything. So you want to make sure, though, you find one that fits your needs. There's a bunch out there. There's buzzsprout.com, there's podbean.com, there's rss.com that we use. There's also libsyn.com, Libsyn, and so many more. So find ones that allow you to upload for free if you have no money, no budget to do a monthly subscription. If you do have some money, what happened for us is that rss.com allowed us to upload our first episode or our first few. I don't quite remember. They allowed us to upload those for free. But then once I went to upload the one after, it was like, hey, you got to upgrade because you ran out of free uploads, basically. So now we're paying $15 a month. And so if that's something that you can swing, go for it. You know your situation better than anyone else. So make sure you find one that fits you. Number 2, if you do have somewhat of a budget, and you don't mind maybe spending a couple $100 potentially, again, you do not have to spend money. You can use literally what you have at home, whether it's your phone, your computer, you have a microphone when you're gaming, whatever. What I personally did was I ended up getting a mixer because we're going from USB mics to XLR mics. If you can take as much processing off of your computer as possible, that will help with the longevity of your computer. And so if you get a mixer and connect all the microphones into there and just do all the processing, EQ, gain, volume, whatever there, all your computer has to do then is just record. So that's all I got for you guys. I hope this helps. If you have any questions or concerns or whatever for me, you can hit up one of our socials down in the description. I've also mentioned some in the episode. So, thank you guys so much for listening, and I wish you luck on your podcast journey. And now let's get to the little funny snippets that I put at the end.
Cool.
Excellent.
I had so many more questions, but not enough time.
I think that was a pretty good Lord of the Rings. Tabletop podcast.
There was only 4, 5.
Yeah. It was actually not too bad.
Yeah, not the 15 or so that just makes my heart sing.
What we should do is treat Lord of the Rings references like spell slots.
We should.
The level of what it is dependent on how long I go. That was a 4th level. You have no more of those until a long rest.
You can't talk more than 3 minutes.
Yeah,
now.
no, I would say you could do it by characters too. Characters and sources, the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson ones. You're like, that is a 4th level spell, Rick.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go into the extended edition,
I would make
it's 5th
it
level.
the books